Doctors, tell us about amazing cases of survival. An unlucky guy forgot his keys and was climbing back into his own apartment through the window. His cousin thought that he was an intruder and pointed a gun at him and pulled the trigger as the unlucky guy opened his mouth to say, "Don't shoot." The bullet went into his mouth and clean exited the back of his neck. After surgery, he was totally fine in a few days, somehow missed all major structures, didn't even chip a tooth, although he was still pissed at his cousin. A guy I know with cancer smokes 2 packs a day and drinks a fifth of whiskey every day. He lives in a trailer so dirty there is a half-inch of dirt, according to his wife's mother. He recovered from anti-cancer surgeries in that trailer. Eventually, we got word he was quitting chemo and was just going to accept death. 5 years ago, he was given 2 months to live. He is now completely cancer-free. Life is just weird sometimes. When I was in college, I heard about a guy who exited a freeway at near freeway speed. Problem was, it was a construction zone at night, no lights, and it wasn't supposed to be an open exit. Drove right into a pile of rebar. One of the poles went through the car into his face and pinned him to the seat through his head. The surgeon described the incident in detail. The guy survived. The rebar had slid right past the base of the brain and spinal column. It was so close, they had to twist it out like a screw because the ribbing on the bar threatened nerve damage. They literally rebuilt this kid's skull around his brain, leaving only a small scar on his chin. Your like and subscription will really help my channel. My resident called me urgently one night and said I needed to come to the hospital. A young man was cut in half by a train. I asked why I needed to come in. There was no way he could survive that. She explained that somehow he was maintaining his pressure and wasn't bleeding out. When I arrived, I found that the force of train had sealed off all the major vessels from the pelvis down. This allowed him to survive. He's the only person that I've seen come back from death. One of my prior patients is a roofer who lived a very full life of alcohol, women, and drugs. He was infected with HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and was cirrhotic and didn't really care about his health at all. He was ghostly thin and didn't listen to anyone, refusing therapy most of the time. I met him first in the intensive care unit, where he had full-blown AIDS, end-stage liver disease, hepatorenal syndrome, unexplained lymph nodes all over his body, variceal hemorrhage, Kaposi's sarcoma, and spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. Prognosis of in-hospital death was over 90% even with therapy. I was involved in his care for about 2 weeks, and again, he refused all types of therapy and asked to be transferred to a hospice to live out his last days. 1 year later, I get a call from the hospice requesting a follow-up appointment for him. I was shocked that he was still alive. He was all better. Turns out, he had the hots for his nurse and did everything she asked in order to please her. She had slowly nursed him back to health, convinced him to restart HIV meds, put him on a low-salt diet for his liver disease, and then eventually got him up and mobile. He spent another 6 months in a rehabilitation facility, then went back to work. We cured his hepatitis C, and after a couple of years, he moved to another place to start a construction company and became rather successful financially. He remains abstinent on his former vices. 2 that stick out. Guy gets shot in the abdomen, drops to his knees. Shooter puts one through the top of his head near his forehead. The guy survived and wasn't even particularly hurt. The bullet came out through his jaw. Young girl driving a car gets T-boned on the passenger side by an Altima going at least 70 miles per hour. Her car looks like it was hit by a missile, so we assumed she was deceased upon arrival, when the other crew on scene said our focus was extricating the people in the Altima. Girl driving was completely unhurt, the best Volvo advertisement. As a student, had a young guy come in who self-inflicted a .22 to the inside of his mouth and passed out. Awoke the next morning, didn't recall the night prior, went to work. 2 hours into work, he says he's not feeling right and starts acting odd. Co-workers call EMS. They take him in, and while the ED is working him up, they notice a mix of clear fluid and blood in the back of his mouth. They call ENT and get a CT head. Shows 11 or so bullet fragments throughout his noggin. The guy was acting by that time completely unfazed. I was very fazed. Working in an Aboriginal community, a woman walked in complaining of a headache behind her eye. She was told to take a seat, and as she turned around, she had a butter knife sticking out the back of her skull. Apparently, a drunk relative came home and stabbed her while she slept. She survived and wasn't even particularly hurt. My grandfather, he had one eye from a roofing nail that flew up and destroyed it, a large scar on his forehead from an axe head flying off and the blade side hitting him, prostate cancer, and, oh yeah, he was hit by a train in his truck and was in a body cast from his armpits down for almost a year in the 50s. He lived to be 96 years old. They don't make them like that anymore. Your like and subscription will really help my channel. Thanks a lot for your donations.